space that you'd like to live in the future. So if you're joining us right now, that's what we're working on. So welcome to the Future of Construction webinar series. My name is Kellyanne Mahoney, and I'm a youth program specialist at Autodesk. And we are joined today also by construction industry professionals from Suffolk Construction. So we're also going to be hearing from Suffolk Construction today. So we'll get more into the plan for today and for this week. But right now, and you'll come to expect this each day of the series, that there's going to be a warm-up activity. So we're just about at 1 o'clock right now. So we are getting started. And I would like for people to get out, participants to get out some paper. So it could be scrap paper. You may use technology if you want, if you prefer to sketch on something like Google Draw, or you have an iPad next to you, but paper is just as good, and I would say even better. I know that you've experienced as students, middle school students, a lot of screen time the past few weeks, so it's always good to to step away and to sketch on paper. So what do you imagine your dream home of the future to look like? So you're going to take a few minutes to sketch. We're going to get started in about 5 minutes or so. So again, your dream home of the future could be on Mars. It could be a tiny home. It could be a tree house. Really get innovative, really get imaginative about what you think it could look like. You might talk about some of the materials that you might use to build your house or your space, whatever it may be. Different technologies that you might want to integrate into your space. Innovative shapes. So maybe your home of the future might be the shape of a leaf or a lantern, or maybe it's shaped like a shoe. Maybe you're really into sneaker design and you want to be inspired by the cool new ways that shoes are being designed. They're even starting to 3D print shoes or parts of shoes. You might think about the setting. For example, this week, we're going to be hearing from engineers who work together with other construction industry professionals. And that's a lot of what they think about too, is making sure that beautiful design that the architect creates to make it beautiful and human-centered and functional. They need to make sure that where it's being positioned, that actually works on the land that it's being put on. So maybe your home of the future could be looking off into the ocean, and maybe that might affect where you're going to place the doors or the main entrance or the windows. Are they going to be looking at the mountains? Are they going to be looking at other tall buildings? Because maybe your space is a smaller space inside of a larger structure. You might also pretend you're a bird flying over the space and the roof is suddenly taken off and you can just see the layout of where the rooms are. So to just take a few minutes to sketch, and we will get started in about 2 minutes or so. So sketch away. So we'll take another 2 minutes or so. And those of you who are just joining us, my name is Kellyanne Mahoney. I'm a youth program specialist at Autodesk. We are going to be joined today by Suffolk Construction, who are going to talk together with us about the future of construction and what it might look like. And for those of you who are joining right now, middle school students, we really see you. So part of the name of this series, it's kind of like has a double meaning. I used to be an English teacher, and sometimes I can't escape that role. So in thinking about the future of construction, we're thinking about buildings and bridges and skyscrapers and all the cool things that you can build. But we're also thinking about you as the future of construction. You middle school students are going to be the builders and the architects and the engineers of tomorrow. So we're really excited to see that you dream up this week. And those of you who are joining right now, if you are a future panelist this week, you might notice that you you are appearing right now, but it's okay. But so this week we are going to be talking about the future of construction. Right, so it's right about 1:05. Again, and sorry to sound repetitive, but I just want to thank everybody who joined this week. If you are here for the Future of Construction webinar series with Autodesk and today's Suffolk Construction, you are in the right place, so we are happy to see you. One of the things that I'd like to tell you, though, just to get started and in thinking about protecting your personal privacy, we can't actually see you. So the panelists and the moderators and even other participants cannot see you. You can only see us when we are talking. So to begin, just to let you know, to give you a sense of what's going to happen this week, each day, so you're going to tune in at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I'm saying that because we also have participants joining us from Canada, from Chicago, so welcome. The content of this learning experience is going to be pretty centered on Boston, but we also are very excited to think about how you can take the learning from today and extend it to your own personal spaces, or you might be inspired by Boston as well. We are all pretty Boston-centric as well who live in Boston, and you might find that too this week. So each day you should expect a warm-up activity. We're going to talk a little bit about your sketches if you want to participate and kind of share your ideas with us. Again, we see you as the future of construction, in addition to the cool buildings and bridges and other types of infrastructure that's going to make our world better in the future. So we see you as part of that whole concept. So do expect a warm-up activity every day. So again, this is the future of construction. You should expect to see, that this is the kind of big idea each day that we're going to be covering. Today's presentation is on the theme of the future of construction, because we thought we'd give you a really high-level overview about the future of construction. Today's presentation is co-presented by Suffolk Construction, so very excited for you to meet our Suffolk Construction collaborators as part of this project, and also by Autodesk. So my name is Kellyanne Mahoney. I'm a youth program specialist at Autodesk. I also had been a Boston Public Schools middle school teacher for over 10 years, 11 years with middle school, but 13 years in total. So very excited for you to be joining us today. Before we get started, I just wanted to give you a sense of how to participate. So you will see at the bottom of your screen, if you're a participant, you'll see that there is a chat there. If you try to type into the chat, you'll notice that it is disabled. The reason why we disabled the chat was to protect your privacy, and also just to prevent any type of interruptions that we may not want to have during our learning. So chat is disabled. However, we as panelists and as hosts can chat, send out a message to you. You'll also notice at the bottom of your screen that there is a raise hand icon. We might, throughout the series this week, we might ask you just kind of sort of questions like a poll. For example, right now, I'm going to ask everyone to raise your hand if you're a participant and you understand so far how to participate. So raise your hand if you understand so far what I'm saying about how to participate. And Kelsey or Corey, could you let me know how we're doing in terms of people raising their hands? So do you understand?
So we have 67, 68, it keeps going up, 60, 69, almost 70. It keeps ticking up. We have about 75 out of 100 have raised their hand so far.
Well, one of the reasons why we were so excited that you middle school students are the future of construction is that we like to call your generation digital natives. So we don't anticipate that you'll have any issues in terms of thinking about how to participate. One way that you can also speak to us and talk to us throughout the presentations is the question and answer is enabled. So you may chat with us or chat with the other hosts or our moderators. We will answer your questions live. We're not going to type into the question and answers because we don't want your personal information going out there to other participants. But throughout the course of this series, if you want to ask questions, you may, and we're going to try our best to acknowledge your voices as we're presenting. We also have set aside time for question and answer at the end as well. So just to go back to that question of what do you imagine your dream home of the future to look like? Does anybody want to try out in the question and answer telling us something about your sketch? Maybe like what is like the main material that your building would be created out of, or maybe it's an interesting shape, or maybe you thought of a cool other application for robotics in your house of the future. You want to share with us some of what you're thinking or what your design looks like in the question and answer? Corey or Kelsey, can you see any answers popping up? Or any responses? Oops, Corey, you're muted.
Yes, someone said brick and stone.
Nice, so kind of traditional.
We have another one. I'm using solar panels for my house. My home is a concrete pyramid with triangle windows and a triangle door. It has a door scan that scans your eyeball so you don't need a key. That is very futuristic.
Very cool, and I love how it's both futuristic, but it's also inspired by historical architecture. So in Egypt, for example, the pyramid shapes. I know that even the Star Wars film, the houses of the future were inspired by houses in Africa. I think it was in Sudanese houses. So very interesting to also meld that ancient history with the future. I was saying earlier also, usually when we're not in these challenging times, I work out of the Autodesk Technology Center in Boston. And there was one group that was actually working on making buildings using mycelium, which is the roots of mushrooms, as a building material, which is really cool because you can actually grow it into the shape that you want it to be. And also it's the type of building material that actually would take carbon out of the atmosphere. So the building is not only not hurting the environment, it's actually making the environment better. So we'll have more time to participate. And thank you, Corey, who you'll meet later, for helping us with the question and answer. All right, so I'm excited that you all are excited. Just to give you a sense of the goals for today, but also for the week as well, is that our aim is to expose you to career paths, so to make you feel excited as we are about the future of construction and how construction and technology are intersecting with one another in cool ways that actually makes the profession even more accessible to more people as well. And more people with different interests too. So maybe you might think that I'm not interested in building, but I am really interested in robotics, or I'm really interested in video games. So thinking about how all of that can meld into our buildings of the future. We're also going to be talking about how the construction industry is leveraging technology to reimagine how we can build more and build better while having less negative impact on the planet. We also hope that this week, so through this week-long experience, that you will gain skills in the design thinking process. We're going to go pretty heavy on that on Friday. And also computer-aided design to imagine, design, and create a solution for a real-world problem. So this whole experience is going to culminate in a design challenge and also an opportunity for you to share your designs with a larger audience. So for you teachers that are out here, I'm not going to go super heavy into standards, but I know that teachers always appreciate when we align the content that we're presenting with standards. And we also really appreciate, I know it's not Teacher Appreciation Week anymore, but I think it should be every week all year round. So we appreciate you, we hear you, we see you, we know that what you're presenting to students should align with standards. So I found these 3 middle school standards from the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. These are actually power standards too. So these are the standards that Commissioner Riley had stated are prerequisites for going to the next grade level. So not only is this content aligned with standards, it's aligned with standards that are really considered to be essential right now. Those of you who are teachers, if you want to email me, you'll find my registration, my email information, my contact information in the registration email that you received. So I'm happy to answer any questions that teachers have about the content that's being presented today. I also wanted to share with you, there is an additional teaching resource. This is a URL to it at the bottom of the screen. Again, I can share some of the slides with you teachers too if you email me. So this actually just is a preview of that instructional resource that you can align with what you are teaching students. So this is a design challenge that we created actually in collaboration with James Devlin of the New England Patriots, who actually was a mechanical engineering major at Brown before he joined the Patriots. So this is just some content that helps you kind of take what we're presenting and kind of turn it into more of like a unit that you could present to your students. It includes rubrics and everything else. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because this is really centered on students. But teachers, please email me if you have any questions. Just to give you a sense of the week and what the week will look like. So today, again, Future of Construction with Suffolk Construction and Autodesk. On Tuesday, you'll be hearing from Mass Robotics and the Timothy Smith Network, and they're going to be talking about robotics and construction. On Wednesday, the theme is the beautiful neighborhood, and that will be presented by our friends at the Boston Society for Architecture and also EcoRise, which is a really cool group that is collaborating with the Boston Society of Architecture, and they create curriculum for teachers and for students to help you think about how to build things better for the environment. And they also provide a curriculum for LEED certification for high school students as well. Thursday is going to be focused on designing for resilience, and that will be presented by our friends at the Boston Children's Museum in Thompson Island, Outward Bound. And on Friday, we're going to spend a longer time digging deeper with design thinking in Tinkercad. Tinkercad is actually the product that I primarily support for Autodesk. So I'm going to I'm going to preview some content today from Tinkercad, but we'll dig really deeper into it in terms of how to actually use it on Friday. So that is the plan for the week. Just to give you a preview of the design challenges that you're going to be working on, and our thinking on this is we're going to launch it on Thursday and Friday of this week, but you might work with your teachers for another couple weeks following this experience on the design challenge. Ultimately, what you design is going to be presented in a virtual showcase by the Boston Children's Museum. So we're getting into more details about how to submit your work, but we just wanted to give you a sense of what to expect this week and what all of this learning is building into. It's an opportunity for you to design and make something. So you'll have two options for the design challenge. One is to create a model that shows how you would address an issue of environmental justice in your neighborhood or community. So you are going to build a model to show your thinking. And when we say model, sometimes we get really technical, but model is just, it's like multi-dimensional way of showing your knowledge about a particular topic. So those dimensions could include images, could include words. My math teacher friends would be upset if I didn't say numbers as well, and numbers are really an integral part of information modeling. A 3D digital model, so I'll show you particularly how to do that on Friday, or you could get hands-on with like crafting materials like milk cartons and cardboard or cereal boxes, toilet paper rolls, empty ones, don't empty them on your family for these projects. Make sure you're using real recyclables. So you could build a physical model and take a picture of it and share it with us. The other option is to do the same thing in building a model, but instead of addressing an issue of environmental justice in your neighborhood, you're going to create a model that solves a problem for Thompson Island. So on Thursday, Thompson Island is going to present us real world problems that they're having on the island, and they want to crowdsource solutions from you as middle school students to help them. So just really quickly, so we're going to be talking today about architecture, engineering, and construction, just as an overview. And at Autodesk, again, that's where I work. My name is Kellyanne Mahoney, and I'm a youth program specialist at Autodesk. We think of all of these industries kind of coming together and presenting the future of making. So we ask a lot of architects. We ask architects to build us structures that are beautiful, that are human-centered, that are functional. We ask the engineers to make sure that those designs are structurally sound, that they provide access to plumbing and heat and good ventilation and electricity. We ask construction industry professionals to build those, to actually bring those things to life and to make sure that the project is on time, that it's cost effective, that the craftsmanship of their builders and their workers is being demonstrated in the buildings. In addition to that, we're asking them more and more to all work together and collaborate. And also, on top of all that, we're asking them to build more and build better and make buildings that are actually better for the planet. So not to stress you out about the future of making, but it's a lot that we're asking, and we think that you middle school students are up for that challenge. So what will the future of construction look like? Some people think the future of construction is going to start looking more and more actually like the automotive industry. So when you think about assembly lines and kind of how, you know, in the early 20th century, we really started to think about how we can make the process more efficient and to organize workers in a way to do those things. So not only is it more efficient, but cars actually, when they first came out, you know, people who had access to buy cars were actually mostly rich people. But however, when the manufacturing industry became, you know, more efficient and kind of more of a commonplace way of working, it actually drove the cost of cars down so that ordinary people could actually afford cars. Well, we all know that there's a crisis in the housing industry as well, where normal people, even middle class or upper middle class people, particularly in places like Boston, can't afford to actually buy a home. That used to be kind of the part of the American dream, is you own a home or you own a space to live. So this is actually a group out in California called Factory OS, and they are actually putting that kind of theory into place by prefabricating building components in a factory setting. So building things to be assembled at the construction site versus building it at the construction site. And this is a way that that they conceive of making housing more affordable for more people. So at Autodesk, we make software for people who are innovating in the built environment. So we make software for people who are designing cars, skyscrapers, bridges, some of the video games that you love to play. The computer graphics are actually designed using our software, some of them, and also movies. Blockbuster Films use our software to create the computer animation. A lot of what we're asking the construction industry to do right now is based on global trends. So really big global trends. So for example, as of 2019, the population was at 7.5 billion. So that's probably roughly around what our population is now. By 2050, the population is growing to be 10 billion people on Earth. So the population is growing globally. In addition to that, another trend is the population is actually centering around cities as well. We call that urbanization. So that currently right now, there are about 3.5 billion people living in cities. By 2050, it'll be 7 billion. So that also means that the urbanized population, people who live in cities, it's going to be about over 2/3 of the overall population. So that means that we need more buildings. By 2050, we need 13,000 new buildings a day in order to meet the demand of that growing and kind of urbanizing population. It also means that we need more roads, and we need more rails, and we need more tunnels and all types of infrastructure. We actually, by 2050, we need enough roads and rails to stretch around the Earth 30 times per year in order to meet that demand. Even currently right now, the issue of climate change is impacting the way that we're building things and thinking about building. So currently, right now, today, not 2050, right now, today, $4 trillion worth of assets are at risk because of climate change. So roads, buildings, bridges are at risk due to climate change. By 2050, we project that 5 billion people on the planet Earth could suffer from not having access to water. So that is a huge portion of our population that would be suffering if we don't figure out a solution to that problem. Also, currently, right now, 90% of the built environment, so all those assets that we talked about, are centered on the coast, which means that they are already being exposed to things like flooding and other storms and other phenomena that, that are caused by climate change. So we realize as an industry that more is inevitable. Another global trend that we can be happy about, that we can feel optimistic about, is that people are actually, we see the trend of people doing better economically, that more people are joining the global middle class, which means when you're in the middle class, you can afford things like cars and cell phones and have equitable access to food and buildings. However, with that comes more things that we need to make. We also realize that less is a reality. So you might have learned in your earth science class about natural resources, and that natural resources are not infinite. So we need to figure out how to build more, but build it with less materials. Another thing that we're realizing that we have less of, that's a very important asset to our community, is talent. So 20% of the construction workforce is retiring right now. So that's a little bit scary for us as an industry, but it's also could be exciting to you, that there will be jobs for you in the future if you're interested in construction and building. In addition to that, we're going to hear from the Boston Society for Architecture. Currently, right now, 30% of architects are over the age of 55. So there's a lot of opportunity in the industry if you're interested in joining it as a profession. The built environment, 25% of our water is consumed by the built environment. So when I say the built environment, we mean, again, buildings, bridges, roads, train stations, hospitals, schools. So 25% of the water is consumed by the built environment. 30% of global waste is actually attributed to the construction industry. So we realize that's a problem and we need to figure out ways to solve that. And also 40% of global energy is consumed by the built environment. So we see all of this, though, combined in the way that we're all collaborating together as an industry, that there is an opportunity for better. And we include you in thinking about the opportunity for better, and how can we integrate technology and new processes in order to make things better. So the things that we make are changing, the way that we make them are changing, and also the way that we work together is changing. So we'll learn about that this week. Right now, I have another raise your hand question. So maybe Corey and Kelsey might be able to help with the raising of the hands. Maybe Corey. Raise your hand if you're familiar. This is actually a scene from a film. Raise your hand if you're familiar with what film this comes from. I'll give you a second to take a look. So raise your hand if you're familiar with what film this image comes from. Came out a couple of years ago.
So far, we have 22 hands raised.
Sweet. Anybody wanted to gander a guess at what film it comes from? Who wants to use the question and answer to tell us? Is anyone guessing? What film? Who could name the film? Use the question and answer.
Ready Player One?
That person is correct. Ding, ding.
Yeah.
So this is from, I love this film. And actually, if you're thinking about, what are some films that you could watch together with your family during these times, this is a good one. So Ready Player One is a film that imagines what society will look like in 2045. And it also includes like really cool stuff like how we might collaborate together in virtual reality. It's a really cool film. And it's appropriate for middle school too. But so this is the vision of what an urban area might look like in 2045. What I'd like to present to you is another vision, so a more optimistic vision of what the future could look like. So this is a conceptual design. So this building doesn't exist yet, but it's a concept of what it might look like in the future. This was designed by a group called Arup that actually I think is based in Boston as well. So they thought of like the same kind of prompt that you thought of during the warm-up activity. What would a building of the future look like? And this was what they predicted. So it's modular. So a building of the future has components, kind of when we think back to that idea of manufacturing, that it's almost like a kit that's put together, and that modular components are configurable and can be swapped out. You know, if a part of the building, you tried out something new and it failed, rather than having to rebuild the whole building again, you can swap out a part. They use interesting materials, like the idea that the outside of the building has algae on it that produces biofuel. Also solar PV paint applied to the facade elements, so the outside, in order to get some of that solar gain that we need to power the building. That robotics are integrated throughout in order to maintain the building. So when we think about building of the future, it's not just you build the building and then you walk away. You build the building and then you're still continuing to generate data from the building that helps you think about how you can maintain the building and keep it healthy and keep it structurally sound. Also thinking about, you know, in the future, so on Wednesday, we're going to hear about the idea of living walls and urban gardening, but how can we produce food in urban environments, maybe even inside of our buildings. And also just that idea, again, that we don't want to just build buildings better so that they don't hurt the environment. How can we build buildings that can actually make the environment better? So how can we build buildings that are made of materials that absorb carbon dioxide and transform it into oxygen? So that was just a hopeful view of the future. Here's another example. So that's a building. So this is an example of a bridge that we collaborated on together with a group in Europe. And this is a pedestrian bridge. So I'm just going to play this because it has kind of all the things. So this bridge is a pedestrian bridge, and it was actually 3D printed in steel by robots. So talking about all the things. So it's a beautiful design. And again, this is a pedestrian bridge. So this is a bridge just for people to walk over. It took 4 robots, 6 months of printing, and lots of, well, not lots of, a good amount of stainless steel. One of the advantages of actually 3D printing things, building structures, you're actually using less material because you're just using the material that's added to the design. So this is actually a rendering. So this isn't really what it looks like. This is a visualization of what it could look like before it was actually built. So I like this film just because it shows you kind of all of those things integrated, the 3D printing, the robotics. This also, because it was designed, so that it was designed in CAD, and then the information is stored in the BIM, a building information modeling system. So it's not just the design, but also this is the series of sensors that were added to the bridge so that in the future, the city can then gather data for how the bridge is performing, and not only this bridge, but then they can maybe extrapolate and use that data and scale it out to see, make predictions about how other spaces in the city might be performing. In addition, the idea of designing it in advance and kind of creating this digital twin of what the bridge might ultimately look like lends for things like virtual reality, that you can walk across the bridge in VR before it's actually built. So just really quickly, I wanted to just preview to you Tinkercad, which is our free browser-based, you can use it on a Chromebook, you can also use it on an iPad as well, software that we're going to be digging more deeply into on Friday. So again, this is Tinkercad, it's tinkercad.com. This is the landing page of Tinkercad. I'm just going to show you a very quick preview. So this is going to go really fast, don't try to follow along, but this is how you might assemble something using Tinkercad. So in Tinkercad, we've actually added a new parts collection that's called Making at Home. So I'm telling you guys to make things out of recyclables, but you may not have a milk carton kicking around your house. Well, you do have one digitally in Tinkercad. So this is how you can subtract from shapes. So you can make solid shapes or you can make holes. You can subtract from shapes. You can group them together. So this is what's happening right here. You can also align them, so making things really centered. I love it. It's so satisfying to align your model and group it together. So again, holes you can use to subtract. So I want to put a little door in here. Maybe you can start to see what it is that I'm making. So there's a door, and then I'm going to grab a chopstick and I'm going to put it through the center, and I'm going to align it, and then it's a little bit too long on one side, so I'm going to put a hole there. And you can also manipulate shapes, so dragging those little handles or little boxes at the end, you can change the size. So I'm combining them, the two of them, and then subtracting from them. And then I need something to hang it at the top. So you may have guessed already, this is a birdhouse. So you could actually make this either digitally on Tinkercad later, or you could, make this in real life as well. So right now, I think I was having a little bit of a hard time aligning the hole. So there you go, subtracting from it. So then you can use digital tools even to prototype and not waste so many materials if you figure it out digitally before you make it in real life. So there's my little preview of Tinkercad. But again, Friday, we're going to dig more deep into it. And then if you wanted to make your milk carton birdhouse in real life, this is an image. And you can actually search for this. This is from Instructables, which I had showed earlier. So just to conclude, so we are talking about the future of construction, but we also see you students as the future of construction. And we are asking of you to think about how we can build more. We can do it better with having less negative impact on the planet. So this is a really beautiful example of a living wall sort of concept that is on an urban building that is both beautiful, but also it's performing in terms of making the building make the environment better. And again, just thinking about if we design things digitally first, how we can make really unique shapes, and if we're using even our computational thinking in doing so, that we can build things that we never thought were possible. This is actually the Museum of the Future, that image. So that is the end of my presentation, and we're going to shift over to Suffolk Construction next. We are going to have, so do expect that there'll be question and answer after each session. If anybody has any quick questions now, I'm glad to answer them, but I also want to make sure that we have time for Suffolk, and you can also ask questions to us at the end too. Corey, are there any questions right now that people are asking?
Yes, one in particular is, could we use something like SketchUp?
SketchUp is also another way of modeling things digitally. I'm going to be demonstrating Tinkercad because Tinkercad is part of the Autodesk family, but we are not limiting, what technologies you're using or what materials you're using.
Awesome. And then someone else asked, this is a larger question, are you sending a copy of this recording?
We are going to, so we are recording this, and we will be sharing a little bit later in the week where you can find the recordings, but this is going to be recorded as well. And also teachers, if you want to email me, I'm glad to answer any questions or share some aspects of the presentation with you via email.
Copy that.
Great. Thank you, Corey. Anything else? Welcome. Again, you can also ask more questions of me at the end, but I would like to extend the floor to Kelsey and Corey and Brooke so that they can introduce themselves and talk about Suffolk Construction.
Great, thanks, Kellyanne. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Let me just... make sure that, okay, should be all set with the sound. Hi everyone, so my name's Kelsey, Kelsey Gager. I work at Suffolk Construction on our innovation side. So I work out of our co-lab, which I'll show you guys what that is in a little bit, our construction lab, which is a space for experimenting with innovation and new technology for construction. Today, I'm going to be walking you through some of the different technologies that we use on the construction side and how we apply those to some of the buildings that you guys might recognize here in Boston. I'm also joined by some of my colleagues. Corey and Brooke will also be talking to you guys a little bit more specifically about green building and passive house building. If you guys have any questions at any point, feel free to raise your hand or use use the question and answer panel as well. So I'll kick it off here with a quick video to give you guys a little bit of info on Suffolk.
At Suffolk, we've always sought the most inspiring solution for our clients' challenges. To lean on our ambition, to innovate, And so, as a new era dawns, we continue our pursuit of better. Continue to drive real change and innovation in an industry ruled by the status quo. Because we've never seen impossible as an obstacle, but as an invitation. Not as a deterrent, but a dare. To take your vision and find new ways to make it a reality. New ways to push boundaries. New ways to look impossible in the eye and prove it wrong.
So that was a quick intro into some of the buildings that we've worked on across the country. So I'll give you guys a quick description of what we do at Suffolk. Like I mentioned, I work out of the CoLab, so I'll give you a quick virtual tour of that. A little bit of info on technology and innovation that we're currently using. Kellyanne brought up some great examples that we'll show you about using virtual reality and BIM models to build everything in the digital space before we build it in the real world. And then I'll turn it over, like I mentioned, to Corey and Brooke, who I also work with at Suffolk, who will tell you guys a little bit about some of our current Suffolk projects, how they're building green, and some details around Passive House. So just a quick intro to Suffolk. We were founded here in Massachusetts back in the 80s. So we're actually headquartered here in Boston, which is really cool. We have an office here in the Roxbury neighborhood in Boston. We have about 2,400 employees nationwide. We did about $4 billion in construction last year, with a lot more in the pipeline coming up. So we do a lot of big projects. You guys have probably seen our scrim or signage around the city, but we also are in a lot of other sectors as well. We work down in the Southeast in Florida. We have offices in California, New York City. So we have a lot of presence throughout the country in building. And I mentioned this, but at Suffolk, I work in a space called the CoLab, which when people think about construction, they don't really typically think that much about technology. But construction actually has a ton of opportunities to use really cool technology and apply that out into the field. So one of the things that we have at Suffolk are these labs. We actually have 7 of them nationally. This is our one in Boston. This is a photo of it. So this is where I go to work every day. And then, like it mentions there on the screen, it stands for Construction Lab, but really what it is a collaborative environment where we experiment and test new technologies. Just to give you some specifics on it, on the left there, you see some of the live feeds that we use. Those are all live feeds of all of our projects going on across the country. You see the huddle wall. That's a Bluetooth-enabled board where you can sketch and design and draw things, and then have it all saved up to the cloud seamlessly. In the back there, you see our 3D Cave. Cave is an acronym. It stands for Cave Automatic Virtual Environment. You can put models into there, those BIM models that we've been discussing. You can actually drop them into that environment and tour them virtually, which is really cool to see. We also have a data wall, which you kind of see in the center there. It leverages a lot of the different data that we're collecting, whether it's historical data, information on the buildings that we're building, things like schedule, things like cost. And we're using that type of data to become more predictive in hopes of being able to use things like AI and machine learning. So I mentioned this, but we have 7 of those labs that I just showed you the photo of across the country. It allows us to collaborate across all of our different regions, across our different sectors, and it gives all of our project teams access to things like technology. So what I'll show you guys now is some of that VR that we've been talking about, building buildings in digital format in a BIM model, and then visualizing them in virtual reality. You can make decisions a lot faster, and you can make decisions a lot more efficiently without, Kellyanne mentioned this, but you can reduce waste by using things like robotics, by using things like digital assets to build a building. So I'll show you guys an example of that and how we've actually used that to do some building here in Boston. And then secondly, we're doing things like 4D scheduling. So I'm going to show you guys 2 examples. These are the types of technologies that we would be using in the CoLabs and out on our job sites to actually build the building. And these are actually 2 examples of buildings that we have already built, which will be cool to see. So what I'm showing you guys here, this is an example of a virtual reality environment that we created. If anyone has seen the big casino that was built north of the city, we actually built that, just finished that last summer. And what you're seeing here are some examples of the types of things that you can build into these virtual models, which are things like wall coverings, things like art, and you can make different decisions and put in different options without ever having to build anything physical. So Kellyanne mentioned reduction of things like prototypes. This allows you to not have to build everything in the real world right away. You can build everything digitally, make decisions like what type of flooring you want, what type of furniture you want, and have it be much more effective. So when you guys are thinking about designing your buildings and designing your buildings of the future, it's great to think about things like what you want to have inside from a furniture or from a design perspective, what type of tile you want in your bathroom. And you can think about all of those things on your computer and consider different options without ever having to waste materials. So that's where we're really seeing a tremendous benefit with this type of technology. And then I mentioned the 4D scheduling piece. So what we're able to do here is take those 3D BIM models that we've been referencing, that you guys will be working on a similar thing, and you can actually tie them into things like schedule. By doing that, you create another dimension. So it goes from 3D to 4D. Now it has time built into it. And by doing that, you can start to do things like sequencing and logistics. So thinking about what you build first, where do you put your crane, things like that that have to do with logistics. You can start to fix those problems all in the digital world without having to actually install a crane. So again, huge efficiencies to be gained, reduction in waste, time saving. So I'll show you guys a quick video here. This is a guitar-shaped building that we built down in Florida. It's pretty cool. If you fly down if anyone's ever been to Miami or Florida, if you fly down there, you'll see this right on the horizon. It's a huge guitar-shaped building. It's made out of thousands of pieces of glass. I know some of you guys mentioned that for your materials, you'd like to use glass. This building is made out entirely of curtain wall panels, which is a structural glass that was used. It has the largest swimming pool in North America, which is pretty cool to see too. So, and you guys will see it fill in there in the lagoon. And this is exactly what we're talking about with leveraging BIM modeling to do things like logistics and figure out, you see those cranes there, you see the guitar strings being built, which are where the elevators for that building are housed. So all these types of things, all these types of key decisions can be captured and housed from an information perspective in a BIM model. And there you'll see I think the pool is like the last, there you go, there's the pool. So pretty cool to see all these things kind of come to life in the digital space. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues. I mentioned they're going to talk a little bit about green building. So Corey/Brooke, take it away.
Thanks, Kelsey. Good afternoon, students and teachers. Wonderful to be on here with you. Hope everyone out there is doing well and is healthy. So one of the projects I want to discuss with you today is a project at Boston University. It's the Center for Computing and Data Sciences. There's a rendering of it on your screen right now, and you'll see the unique shape of it. This is on Commonwealth. This will be on Commonwealth Avenue in the Fenway-Kenmore area of Boston. That shape that I alluded to it's designed to look like a stack of books, so it's really great for an academic setting to have that unique shape. But what's really interesting about this project is that it will be carbon neutral and fossil fuel free. So I mean, no gas lines going into the buildings to actually heat and use the HVAC system, the heating and ventilation system for the building. There'll be 31 geothermal wells, which will pull heat out during the summer and bring heat into the building from the earth in the winter. So very unique way to approach that, again, free of fossil fuels. The windows will have 3 layers of glass to retain heat. So I grew up in an old house in Roxbury that had single panel windows. And on a cold winter day when the wind was blowing, it felt like the wind was coming directly in on me. Then as I've been in modern houses, they've been, double plated glass. So this is actually triple. So you can imagine the energy savings you get from using 3 layers of glass. The electricity is going to be generated by a wind farm, and the wind farm is actually in South Dakota. So again, a very unique way to bring electricity into the building instead of the traditional way. And the thing about the stack of book shape, it's not only for design feature, but it also has a functional side in that where you see those terraces, those can be green and will be green terraces. So a lot of newer buildings have green roofs. These actually have green terraces throughout the building. So again, it's a very innovative design. We look forward to working with BU to get this project started. They had a groundbreaking in December. Construction was supposed to start this spring. Obviously, it's been delayed with the health crisis, but we look forward to getting it started soon. With that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Corey Allen, to discuss another project in Boston.
Kelsey, can you flip to the next slide, please? So while Kelsey's getting to the next slide, my name is Corey Allen. I'm a Trade Partner Diversity Officer, Trade Partner Diversity and Community Outreach Officer here at Suffolk Construction. I'm going to talk a little bit about Winthrop Center, but before I get to Winthrop Center, I'm just going to go to Passive House. So Kelsey, are you presenting still?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I had a little glitch, but I'm
Nope,
working.
you're fine.
There you go. Okay, great. So let me know if that is working.
If you can just flip to the next slide, please.
There you go.
All right, super. So again, I'm going to talk about the building that we're building, Winthrop Center, and particularly the office portion, which is going to be Passive House. But because you all are working on designing your own buildings, and I did see that some of you are thinking about incorporating some elements of Passive House, I wanted to show this picture so you can see some of the pieces where if you are looking to build a house that has Passive House certification, which you'll be looking at. So areas such as clean air exchange, so how much fresh air is coming into the house through the ventilation system. The insulation in the walls, like Brooke mentioned earlier, windows can be a part of it, but any egress points. And this is actually tested through something called a blower door test, where they close all of the air shafts that are going in and out of the building and have a fan in one section of the building. And then based on measures that they have on the outside, make sure that the building is tight where it's supposed to be for the egresses. Making sure that, again, those windows are open to take in heat. So a couple of people say they wanted slant roofs with sunlights, which is great because during the winter you can get heat into the house. But again, making sure that on the other side that it's sealed properly, and overall using solar and bioenergy mass to make sure that the building is as efficient as possible. Next slide, please. So as we talk about locations, someone said that they wanted their house on the Caribbean Ocean facing the water. We are centrally located inside of the financial district. So if you look to your left, you're going towards downtown Boston, where the white rectangle is with the orange outlined. That is the intersection, or what you would call a downtown crossing. And to the right, you're going over towards South Station in the Leather District. So even in terms of designing this building, we had to keep in mind that we're being surrounded by buildings. So whether it be solar, whether it be wind tests, and water retainage indoor, shifting off into the ocean, those are things that we had to take into mind in designing this building and getting this office space, which is actually going to be the largest passive house building in the world, in order. Next slide, please. So what you're looking at now is what you would see as a typical office building, where you see the dots basically outlining or just on the inside. Those would be offices, and the spaces that you see blocked off in black would either be conference rooms or smaller meeting rooms. And so that's the typical office design. But if you flip to the next slide, please, Kelsey, what you'll see is this is a more open design space. Whereas when someone has an office, if they have their door open, if they have their shades open, that's the only way that light gets into the main area. But in this instance, where we have a lot of open space, we're able to, in fact, cut down on the energy efficiency, or we're able to increase the energy efficiency by using lights from the, using solar lights instead of relying on electricity the entire day. Next slide, please. So as Brooke and Kellyanne talked about, one of the ways that we're designing this building is to, in fact, have the wires that are going to be going throughout the floors embedded in the panel, so that if another tenant comes in for the office building, what we can essentially do is pop up these panels and quickly reconfigure the wiring. So if you can please go to the next slide, Kelsey. And so it will look like this. So let's say that this is Autodesk, and Autodesk wanted to have their office layout as such, wherever they have their Ethernet ports, wherever they have their power ports, it can be exchanged easily. So if Microsoft or if Amazon decides to come in, instead of having to reconfigure the whole building, we can take up the carpet and pop out those panels to rewire, to make sure that the new client that has that space, in fact, gets it done with relative ease of cost. Following slide, please. And so this is just kind of an overview. So this is going to be, or this is a rendering of the building. Overall, the office portion, which is the bottom 26 floors, will be passive house. The office will also have well standards, which includes having healthy snacks and reusable water for everyone. The residential portion, which is from floors 26 and up, will be LEED Platinum certified. And in terms of the electricity, we're going for wired platinum certification. So I know that was a quick overview of the building, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you. And we do have 2 hands raised. One second. Okay, why is it called a building if it's already built? Because it's in fact a building. Building can be used as a verb, but it can also be used as a noun. So saying that it has been built. Let me see if we have another question. Someone want to hear more about BIM modeling. Kelsey, do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So Kellyanne mentioned this in the beginning, but BIM stands for Building Information Modeling. It's a way when you can take different information and put it all into a new environment that allows you to visualize the building with another dimension. So you think of like 2D as everything on a piece of paper, like if you drew a house on a 2D piece of paper. BIM brings all of that information into a 3D environment, which kind of brings it to life. It gives it more depth, and you can add things like pictures, you can add things like words, you can add whatever things you want to this BIM model, but the real piece of it is that it goes from that 2D document now to a 3D space. So now any element in there has depth rather than just having something like length and width. So if you think about like a box, if you drew a box on a piece of paper versus when it comes into a BIM model, it would be there as a cube. And Kellyanne, if you have anything to add to that as well, that's sort of how I would describe fundamental BIM.
Sure, I mean, that was a great description. I also noticed that someone asked about, it was what a thermal well was?
So thermal well, it's a way of using the Earth's own energy to power the building. I can't get into all the technicalities of it, but it's an innovative new way to do it that's, again, carbon neutral. If you want a more detailed answer, I can certainly talk with the experts and get back to you.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit. So it's using something called biomass. Basically, if you think about the Earth, at least the way we've been told, there is a core that is molten. So it's really, really hot at the Earth's core. So I think it's digging about maybe 10 or 15 feet below the Earth's core. It's 55 degrees. So essentially, you're taking that heat that is coming from the Earth and you're building a well so that that heat comes up into the building so it can, again, use the natural resources that we have in order to address energy concerns.
Thank you, Corey.
It's so
Yes, sir.
cool to just, to think about how with our presentations, a lot of what I was talking about is like what could be, using the tools and integrating the technology, but it's so amazing to see that you're already at Suffolk Construction making it real and doing all this for the city of Boston. It's just really, and all over the world is really amazing. I do want to just be mindful of time because there is only about a minute or so left of our scheduled time. Brooke, Corey, Kelsey, could you all hang around a little bit after we're done?
Absolutely.
If people want to ask questions. I just wanted to progress just to the end of, so for each day of our webinar series, we also have a cool down activity. So this is something that, if you are done with your work for school for the day, we're not assigning you homework, but if you were inspired by what you heard today, we hope that you were. I mean, I was inspired by clearly from Suffolk's presentation. So we want you to think about how you could extend your learning and apply what you learned, and maybe by doing a hands-on activity. So our cool down activity for today is this. So what materials around your home or in Tinkercad? So I showed you that making at home collection within Tinkercad as well. If you, maybe your cycling was collected today, so you don't have a lot of stuff around the house. So what materials around your home or in Tinkercad could you use to build a model of your dream home in 3D? So remember in the warm-up activity, you did your 2D sketch of what it might look like. We'd like for you to think about how you could take what you learned today. So maybe you had a massive mansion in Bel Air, like I did when I was little in my dreams, that you might want to consolidate and make smaller because you're thinking, ooh, that mansion might actually, use a lot of water or use a lot of energy. So how could you take what you learned today about sustainable design to revise or improve your design? So that is the cool down activity for the day. So you may, if you want to hop off and get started on that, you may, but also we will stick around to answer any questions that you may have as well. I also just want to remind you too that this is a week-long series. So this is the Making at Home collection if you want to play with it. But also just to know that tomorrow you can use the same link from your registration email today. I don't want to bombard you with too many emails. So go back to that same email and you can use that link to join tomorrow. So tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, we are going to be presenting robotics and construction with Mass Robotics. So just want to make sure that you know that there's a continuity to this experience as well. So from there, so it's 2:02 right now. If you want to stick around, we're happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Awesome. So someone said that they're confused. What is a passive house? So again, when it started in Europe, it was mostly designed around actual houses. But as it expanded in Europe and is really making its way over here to the United States, think about it as energy efficiency. So when you are able to view the first piece of the slide or the first panel from the slide that I did, it's really looking at everything from the amount of sunlight and heat that comes into the building, how much you're able to hold on to, the amount of heat that you have to use or not use while you're operating the building. So if you think about passive house, you really think about how much energy does the design and construction of the building make so that you don't have to use an inordinate or a lot of energy to keep the building warm in the winter and to cool it down during the summer. I got another question. How are bids for land done? So I can talk specifically about Winthrop Center. Winthrop Center used to be the Winthrop Center parking garage, and it was a parking garage operated by the city of Boston. And part of the proceeds went to public housing. So public housing such as Orient Heights in East Boston, Old Colony projects, Orchard Park, Orchard Gardens. And the way it went is the city dispensed of the land, or they gave the land to the Boston Planning and Development Agency, and the Boston Planning and Development Agency put out an RFP, which is a request for proposals. Basically, owners or companies that have the capital to potentially build a building would all put together their proposals, put together who their general contractor was going to be, and then from that point, the city chose a winner. And so I was lucky enough to actually be involved in that process, and Millennium Partners won the bid for that particular parcel. I think we have another question for you, Kellyanne. When will we be able to create our own houses?
Right, so this is a great question. So later on in the week, so in the future, you'll be able to actually build your own houses if you want to extend your studies to the future of construction. But for this week and for the purposes of this project, we want you to kind of build, we want to be builders here in our learning as well. So we're going to present you with little kind of mini projects each day, like the cool down activity today. We're really going to dig deep into the 2 design challenges that I mentioned on Thursday and Friday of this week. And also to answer people's questions about using Minecraft or using Animal Crossing. You digital natives are you are, you know, all the different tools that I maybe have not used before. We are not assigning you any specific software to use to design. I will say with Minecraft, you can actually design in Tinkercad and then export it into Minecraft. So we do have that ability built into Tinkercad. So Minecraft is one of our friends, but you may use whatever you want to use to design and build. I know how to use Tinkercad, and that's what I'm going to be demonstrating, particularly on Friday. And, you know, for your teachers that are out there, those are, you know, I can answer questions about Tinkercad too.
Awesome. And someone else asked, did we build a lot of the buildings on Northeastern? We did do some of them. I don't have the exact percentage, but we are looking to do more. If anyone knows anyone at Northeastern, we're always very happy to have our academic partners and help them to expand the growth here in Boston. What colleges did you guys go to? So I started out at Bentley College when it was a college before it was a university. But I got my undergrad and my master's degree from UMass Boston over in Dorchester.
Corey, what school system did you graduate from? High school.
And I graduated from Boston Latin Academy, the same school as Kellyanne. That's why she's asking. Boston Public School is the best public school system, first public school in the country.
Sorry, Brooke, we just needed to plant that shout out.
I went to 2 of the schools that were discussed today. So for undergrad, I went to Northeastern, and we are building a building on campus right now called Northeastern EXP, which is another data science type building. And then I went to Boston University for my master's degree. So got to keep it local.
Kelsey?
I graduated from Williams College in Western Mass, which is a small liberal arts school. So I did not know I wanted to work in the construction industry when I was in school, but it ended up being a great fit. So, and like I mentioned earlier, you can do a lot of different things in these industries. So whether you're interested in technology, in teaching, whatever it is, there's a lot of opportunities within the industry itself.
That's an excellent point that Kelsey made too. Oftentimes when I have students or teachers in the Autodesk Technology Center and I introduce them to different people that work at Autodesk, they're always surprised to learn that someone was an art history major or someone was a theater design major. I actually studied journalism and began as an art major as well. So there are all different pathways into this industry. Which is just really exciting for me. And as Corey said, so I also graduated from the Boston Public Schools. I went to Boston Latin Academy, and then I did my undergrad at UMass Amherst, so out in Western Massachusetts. I studied journalism and art history, and then I got my master's degree in education from the Boston Teacher Residency Program, and which is based at UMass Boston.
Kellyanne, you said something in your presentation about trades workers in Boston. 20% of them will be retiring soon. Mm-hmm. And part of Corey and my mission as for Suffolk is to make sure we are bringing a pipeline of young people to get interested in construction, which is why we're part of this series. But what we want to see done as we replenish the ranks in construction, we want to make sure that it's a diverse workforce. Traditionally, construction has been dominated by white men, quite frankly. And our mission is to get more people of color, more women on our construction sites and in our offices. So I think this is really a key opportunity for us. And construction, I think going forward is going to be one of the industries that will be least affected by COVID-19. It certainly will be impacted, but a lot of projects will be going forward. So this is a great field to be in. And I would just encourage anybody listening to please consider a career in construction.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke. I mean, that's why we are doing this too, is that, we know that, we have big challenges to solve, and we know that there a diversity of ideas too and backgrounds are going to be the best partners for coming together and coming up with those solutions. Like even in terms of like women in the industry, some of the innovations, like for example, like robotic exoskeletons actually make the job of a laborer more accessible to people who are women who may not have as much physical strength as men. Also people with physical disabilities, that technology is really making the industry more accessible. And the other thing too that I often say in working with the Boston Public Schools is let's get kids excited about industries where there will be jobs in the future. And we see all the cranes and we see all the construction that has been halted right now, but we do expect it to be reinvigorated and even being stronger in the future. So let's get kids excited. If you're excited about video game design, well, you might be actually excited about construction too, because the construction jobs are also becoming safer as a result of advances, the ways that we're applying virtual reality to test things out before they happen, test designs out before they happen, and also maybe not having to, maybe using drones to send drones into spaces that might be more dangerous. But now with advances in technology, the job isn't as dangerous as it had been in the past. If you don't want to get your hands dirty, you don't necessarily have to get your hands dirty. You could be like a data analyst or into cybersecurity and be in the construction industry.
Awesome. And we do have some non-construction related questions, and actually both in the same lane. Are you a Pats fan or a Bucks fan now that Brady has left the Patriots?
Corey, I think your sweatshirt answers that question, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. This is actually the Mattapan Patriots. Okay. Not the New England, but all the same. I'm gonna say that I'm gonna be a New England Patriots fan until I go. I am gonna be watching some more Bucks games, and just interesting side note. And this is for all of you middle schoolers that were still on the call. Robert Kraft is the person who owns the Patriots, and during my junior year, through some of my community advocacy, I was actually able to meet his wife, Myra Kraft. And, as a 16-year-old, I didn't quite know what was happening in the world. I just knew that I wanted resources here in Mattapan. So a woman said, Corey, you play football, right? And so she said, I want to introduce you to someone. So she says, this is Myra Kraft, this is Corey Allen. And, she's asking me about football and all this stuff. And so finally I say, I'm sorry, ma'am, what do you do with the New England Patriots? She says, oh, my husband owns the team. And so then it just kind of plays back our whole conversation like, wow. And so this was 1999. I was lucky enough to actually get a nice envelope from Mrs. Kraft, where she actually gave me some tickets to a preseason game. And I went to go see the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Warren Sapp, who I loved as a player, Mike Allstott, who was a fullback, Warwick Dunn, who was a running back, is the reason why I went to that Bucks game. So, just a little fun aside. Again, so for all of you that are interested in whether it be construction, landscaping, as it was when I was a young man, being a developer, always presenting yourself well. Again, had I not gone to this meeting and had I not presented myself well in previous meetings, this woman would have never introduced me to Myra Kraft, and I never would have gotten to be able to go to a Patriots game to see the Bucks. So just make sure that when you're meeting folks and presenting, that you bring your best face, put your best foot forward, and always be respectable.
Awesome advice, Corey. you're also a sports reporter too, weren't you, before you?
Yeah, 100 years ago. Yeah, that kind of led me into working at the Boston Globe and ESPN Boston and writing some articles for community papers. And
So
I'm more than happy to talk about
writing
that.
is important to your job, Corey, being a good writer and communicator?
It is crucial. Yeah, I help some of our vice presidents when they have speeches and meetings that they're going to, whether it be for content or for, just flow of their speeches, making sure that it's good. So yes, and I'm also a former English teacher, as Kelly was. I was a high school English teacher at Tech Boston Academy in Dorchester.
The fast track to this industry is being an English teacher. Any other questions, Corey, that you see, or you think that we're ready to
where did you get your glasses? I got my glasses from 2020 Vision. It is a vision truck, and they are actually transition lenses, and pretty cool. When I go onto the truck, who was there but one of my former students. And so I was just going to go on there to get a test, but again, wanting to support my former students in their endeavors, I actually purchased my glasses from the 2020 Vision truck. Let me see.
Someone said, can we try to make our own house with materials at home for fun? Yes, like that. So that's the cool down activity. So if you are ready to start building and making, you can try to gather like cardboard and glue and tape, or you could even play around in Tinkercad to build something digitally. So we are excited to see what you make.
Someone asked about the wall color behind me. I'm relatively colorblind. I didn't pick out the color, nor did I paint it. This is just my makeshift office while I'm here at home. As you can see, my weight bench is here on the side, so I took the weights off so it wouldn't protrude when I'm on camera. But yeah, I'm sorry, I did not know the wall colors. But I will look, and next time I'm on, I'll be able to give you all an answer.
All right, so I think that we're pretty. Do you see anything else, Corey?
Nope, I think we are all good.
Awesome. All right, so also just if any Boston Public Schools or like Boston teachers are on, do make sure that you have registered for this webinar with your institutional email address, because there will be more opportunities to connect with us in the future. One of our program partners is the United Way. So they're actually going to be making some connections between people that you might want to dig more deeply with in your classes and to get feedback on your project. They'll be emailing you specifically if we can tell that you are a teacher in Boston is kind of the priority first for connecting with industry professionals. So you will have a chance to connect with us in the future. So again, teachers, make sure that you are using your institutional email address so we can kind of identify you. But with that, anything else? Any final comments before we jump off?
I just want to say thank you to all the students and parents. Actually, one of my coworkers, Diana, she said she and her son are on, and we're very happy to have us on. Again, I know this is a tough time for everyone, but I do think that it is crucial that everyone continues learning and continues to grow. So salute to all of you that got on, and continue to be awesome.
Same here. Thanks for all the students and teachers and parents who joined the call. We at Suffolk, one of our core values is caring. So we're very concerned with everybody's health. And we want to make sure that as things slowly get back to normal, that we do so in the most healthy way possible, but we'll get there. So thanks for joining us today. And we look forward to collaborating with Boston Public Schools in the future.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Suffolk Construction. It's been a delight to collaborate with you, and I hope to collaborate in the future with all of you. All right, take care.
And most importantly, thank you, Kellyanne.
Oh, thank you. All right, take care, everyone. Right, we'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Take care. Bye. Bye.